There's something special about working small, especially when the pages are filled with birds, old words, and quiet moments. Today I'm creating a tiny book inspired by poetry, and I'd love for you to create it with me. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're a subscriber, thank you for being part of my community. And if you are here because you just saw the video about making a mini book, well, this is a nice addition to that. I've got an example here of another mini book that I had gone further into, did a little bit of embellishment on the cover, and then on this particular book, I did a small poem by Emily Dickinson. And what you have in this book is 8 different pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have to sort of plan your book in 8 pages. So what we're going to be doing today is working on doing more of the inside as opposed to just the basic structure. And so with this book, I'm going to also use another Emily Dickinson poem. I'm a big fan of Emily Dickinson, and create a series of spreads on my different pages here. And I didn't put this in the book because it's easier for me to work on it flat. So I'm going to start by working on the cover. I've got some ideas for the cover there. And what I have done is I cut out magazine letters with the word hope. My poem is Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. And so the word hope is going to be kind of featured on the front page. I also have a number of supplies that I'm going to be using today. I've got a number of collage pieces. You can see I've got some cutouts over here, some small pieces here, some different kind of papers. This is a copy of the poem that I'm going to be using today. And I've got a couple of vintage books that I'm going to be using. One of them is a book of sheet music. And so I've got that here, and that is what I used for the covers of this book. Another book that I have is a book of stickers that I got from a friend, and this book has this is a bees, birds, and butterflies sticker book, and it's got really wonderful vintage images in it. One thing I don't like about this book, I like a lot of things, but what thing I don't care for about this book is that the stickers in this book all have a white border on them, and that makes them stand out. And so when I've used the stickers in this book, what I have done is gone in through with an X-Acto knife and cut them out. The last thing that I've used as a resource here is this vintage book that I got at a thrift store, and it has wonderful litho plates of birds in it that I used to create some of the plant, or that I'm going to be using to create some of the pages here. And so this kind of like resource is really wonderful to use. It has both black and white pictures in it, and also these color plates. The one thing that I do before I cut them up or use a page like this is I scan it so that I can use it again later. So I don't just use it once and gone. So those are some of the resources I'm going to be using. And for the cover, what I have here is I have a sticker from this sticker book. It's a really wonderful book. And I want to use the bird on the front and the word hope. So I'm going to get started. And so I went through my magazine yesterday and I found the letters for the word hope. And so what I'm going to be doing is putting those here along the book cloth on the front. And I'm just using a paintbrush and Elmer's glue. I find that if I use a paintbrush to spread my glue, for me, it's a lot more control. I could put the glue directly on these letters, but I'm also fine with putting it on the background first. There we go. There's the word hope. You open this up so I can flatten this down, get that back on there. Another thing that I like to use is a brayer, a roller here, so that I can make sure that my pieces are connected really well. So just sort of give it a nice push down, and that way everything's adhered well. And then this bird that I want to put on here, I cut him out from the sticker book, and I want to put, I just love the expression on his face, and I want to put him right here, and he's bigger than I need, so I am going to trim the back. I'm going to trim this piece here so that I can fold it over, and I won't need those. And this is, again, this is a sticker back piece, but I could be using a piece of paper as well, some collage papers. So let me place that on here to get the wonderful expression of this owl. And I am going to do the same thing that I did with my cover, which is to not cut this mitered edge directly to the point, because if I do it this way, I can sort of overlap that that piece and get a much cleaner corner here. All right, so there's that piece done for the cover. And I'm gonna set this aside and let this dry. All right, I very much like that, hope. So that's how that piece will go. Then I'm gonna get started on the inside. And I like to start my pages with like a wash of color. What I'll use for those is just some acrylic paints, just these little craft paints. And I'm gonna be, what I really want is kind of, what I'm planning on doing is doing birds in the trees, because the bird is kind of the focus of this poem. And so I'm gonna go from day to night on this. So this piece of newspaper. All right, so I'm using a fairly thin wash of paints, and I do want to make a note that I have, get some water here, that I have folded this page because I need to know where my individual pages are. I guess we'll go from purple to a little bit more of blue. I need to know where my pages are delineated. So rather than just do this, you know, before I even fold it, which some people might find that, you know, one way to work, I prefer to have it folded first, because I know that this will give me an idea of where my pages go. All right, so I've got kind of a nice gradation here. And now I'm gonna start working a little bit more. I'm gonna put some clouds in there as well. Maybe just a little bit of a kind of a cloud. So I know that this is page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Let me get some white clouds in here. Just a little bit of white wash here. Use that here. White. There you go. And then as I move from blue to a darker blue, I'm going to add more purple. There you go. And then also I'm going to darken this blue with a little bit of black. Put some black in another container. Here we go. To darken that blue, I want it to come and end up being a very deep, kind of a navy blue. So I'm using purple and blue here to get dark, because I'd like to be, this would be more of a nighttime. So we've got kind of the full range of the day here. I've kind of got some silver stars that I might put on this sky. So I want it to be a little bit dark so they show up. All right. And I don't want this paint super thick. So I'm putting some on and kind of brushing it in so it's not like a real thick application. All right, now I'm gonna have to use a little bit more of the white to meet this color in the center. All right. I'm using kind of a wide brush here, mostly because it'll be more efficient. I could even use a wider brush than this, but I find this one to be a pretty good size. All right, so here's where my colors are meeting up. Kind of a light blue in the center, a little more intense at one end, There we go. And I'm going to add a few more of those clouds here in the middle. 1, 2, 3. This is a set of clouds here. Just kind of loose, a little bit of clouds. This is just a background that's going to be mostly covered. So I'm just trying to get some color kind of settled on here. I just find it's a lot easier for me to work on a colored page rather than kind of battling each one of these in white. So this gives me kind of a nice start to my creative process going. All right, I think this will work for what I've got. Actually, I might put a little bit more dark here. Let me see if I can add a tiny bit more, some purple, just a wee bit more dark. That doesn't really look all that great. Maybe I'll not do that too much. All right, anyway, here's a little bit more of the dark for this last page there. All right, I can set these paints aside. I'll be using more paints again, but for now, I'm gonna let this piece dry, take the newspaper away, and start planning my page. I've got other materials that I'm going to be using today that are kind of, I've collected stuff for forever, and I have a few little odd things. Like I said, I'm going to be using some things that are my vintage pages that I have pre-cut some of them, but a lot of what I'm going to be using here also are some really interesting little oddball things. For example, pull up a piece of paper here. I've got these little brads, and I really like these. They're shaped like letters, and for me to use these, what I'm going to do is put like a little hole here. And I picked through them last night and found the letters that I wanted to use. I might have moved them around here a bit. That's the E. One more. So one of the things that I have is a set of these interesting little brads, and they're shaped like letters. And the way that you use those is you kind of poke a little hole, you do a little pierce here, and poke the double prongs here through the page. So here are my letters, H-O, and then I have a P. A little hard to line up, so instead of trying to make them line up, I'm gonna like take advantage of the fact that it's that I should put things in a less than linear fashion. But this is how I'm gonna sort of use these. The word hope. So those will go here on this first page because the poem that I have is here. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, although this is a very long line and this is a very long line, that I could put across more than one page. What I'm going to be doing with these, as I let this sit to dry, is I actually want to kind of tint these as well. I'm going to take these words and I'm going to tear them out. There we go, into little strips. And I know that I'm not going to be using this first word, hope, because I have this other these other words, so I can leave those off, or I could leave it on, either way. But what I'm going to do is tear these off into little bits, and this is the wording that will go on my page. Now, this is pretty big, so it may have to go like this. Hope is the thing with feathers So this is what you have to sort of do, is plan out your page a little bit. And again, if you're trying to do something that's all of a piece, if you're just using this as a kind of a random images, or something a little less structured, that's fine too. But I thought for this one, that purchase in the soul. And then I think I'll skip a page and just do images. And let's see how this works out, because this is a very long sentence here. Now I could also use much smaller type. I could print this out and make it a smaller piece. And sings the tune, and sings the tune without the words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here is the last little part. There's actually more lines to this poem, but these are the ones that I was particularly interested in, not the rest of the poem. So I just wanted to kind of focus on these 4 lines here. And I'm tearing this down just a little bit more so I have a smaller piece. And it says, and never stops at all. And then I can put on the last, I can put Emily Dickinson. So this is how I'm going to plan my page out, or my pages out. Actually, I think I'm going to split her. She has a very long last name. I'll put it like this, Emily Dickinson. All right, so this is how my wording is going to go, and then I can work with that around the words to get things kind of fit in here. So I'm already got quite a bit kind of laid out here. What I'm going to do, though, with these letters or these words is I want them to be not so white as well. I'd like them to be a little bit toned. Kind of a vintage look, because there are some other vintage elements that I want to put in here. And so this bright white doesn't really fit with that aesthetic. I'm kind of going for this dark academic aesthetic here. So for me to do that, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of acrylic paint, and I'm using a kind of a yellow ochre. It's this brownish tan color. There you go. And I'm going to do a very light wash of this. Let me get some newspaper. I'll put this paper underneath it. Just to kind of tint it a little. You could use other things if you wanted to. You could use coffee. You can also use watercolors. A number of other kind of ways to sort of tint your pages. I use acrylic paints because I'm very comfortable with those. All right. And I find this to be kind of works with some of the other elements that I'm going to be using. So you can take a look at some of this vintage music paper and kind of trying to replicate that tone there a little bit. So just a little bit of this that perches in and kind of washed out, so it's fairly transparent. And they don't have to be all the same color. They can have like lights and darks. I kind of like the irregularity of that. And these are going to take a minute to dry. Now I could put this on the very back, and I might do that. I'll see how things go as I'm working on my pages. I have room on the back of here, on the back of this book, to put Emily Dickinson if I wanted to. So that's kind of something I might consider. We'll just see how things evolve. I have a lot of images I want to use, so I don't want to like just fill it with words. All right, so now I've got these all kind of drying. This is almost dry. And I want to start laying out some of the images that I have. So I know that I want to put hope on this first page. Let me see, I've got the letters, where I might put those. I have done books that I worked directly in the book while it was already put together, but I just find for me that I do better when I have the ability to kind of do things like this. Like if I had attached this already, I wouldn't be able to go in and add these elements. I'd have to find another way to do that. Is I have all those bird images and also feathers. So I do want to use a lot of those images. Let me pull out one that I have. This is a rather large one, so maybe hold on to that one. This one is one of my black and white images, and I might just use his little head here. That's one thought. I went ahead and cut a bunch of these. Oh, I didn't finish cutting this one. Let me cut this one out. Just so that you didn't have to watch me use an X-Acto knife. About this bird, let me go ahead and just pull these over here so I have them at hand. Here's another tiny one. That one might fit better. I don't think I need that much of a cope. The other thing that I was wanting to do on this is create some, because there's so many birds and feathers, that I wanted to have some places for the birds to sort of rest. What I had done is I did a little bit of practice on this, and I created like little branches, just a little bit of a line here like this, and I'm going to do some right here as well. So I'm drawing some branches out here, just lightly in acrylic paint, some like light brown paint. What I did instead is I created a couple of tiny stamps, very tiny stamps. You can see this here by using a piece of like little foam tape and cut a little leaf shape. I made this one in a little bit more of an exaggerated style. And the way that I'm going to use these is to use some paint to brush it on and then stamp my leaves this way. And use a variety of greens because leaves aren't all the same color. That way I can build this background up without having to paint each individual leaf. I'm painting each one, but I'm doing it with a stamp so I don't have to actually paint. Yeah, I'm getting these like nice little leaves in here that I'm kind of happy with, and that's again giving me kind of a background to kind of perch my birds on in a little bit. So I'm just using green and yellow. I could add a little bit of white on here to lighten up this one here. Let's see what a lighter one, because we've got some dark areas. That looks pretty good. All right, so I've got a nice background going. You know, I could do a little silhouette. Maybe I'll do that over here at the very end. This last one, we'll do some black ones and just do it like it's going to be in the dark. So I'll use all black, so that might be an interesting kind of approach here. All right, so I'm using black for my branches, and I'm going to use this other little stamp, which is kind of got like a leaf with kind of lines segmented on it. Like I said, this is kind of a nighttime scene. All right, so now I've got the morning, the afternoon, and the evening kind of set up. Set these paints aside. These are all drying nicely. All right. So I think I'm going to put this bird here. Was it this one that I really liked? My bird selection here. Yeah, I kind of like him. One thing that, like I said, when I cut these, I cut them because they had the white border around them. So every once in a while I have to like sort of trim even more to get some of that other white. But I'm going to start here with this one, and this is a sticker, so I can just pull off the back. Easier said than done. There we go. And he's going to be too big, so let's see how much he fits on here. There we go. Hope. All right, and then I'm just going to trim the overlap where he's kind of hanging off. There we go. All right, there's a sticker, so move that. All right, hope, hope. And I think I was gonna change this to take off the word hope and use just the rest of the line. Hope is the thing, right? I have to find, oh, here it is. Or I might just put it there. Hope is the thing with feathers. Oh, I like that even better. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach those on to my my page with a brush and some glue. Let me get my brush all clean to make sure it doesn't have any paint left on it. And I'm going to move this over. I have so much other stuff over there, and put some glue here. All right, and again, this is Elmer's glue. It's my favorite. You can use school glue. I just don't appreciate it that much. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint on the back of this with my glue so that I have a very thin coat, and hope is the thing. There we go, with feathers. So flipping it over and just giving the back a thin coat of glue, it will really attach it well. There we go. And I could use my little roller here to make sure it's attached. That one's wet, so it's going to dry. But I find that it really gets these feathery edges done really well. Speaking of feathery edges, let me throw in a couple of feathers. I have a lot of feathers that I cut out. So I printed this little picture of feathers that I found online and trimmed those. And I've got a little selection of feathers so that I could add my feathers on here. Like this one. Hope is the thing with feathers. All right, so there's my feathers. That's a white feather. Here, I like this feather. And sort of let those lay around. And you know, I think I'm going to carry some feathers onto this first page as well. Let me find a nice one. Here we go. It's a really bright one. Maybe I'll save that for a minute. I've got quite a bit of them here. Okay, oh, this is a sticker. So let's put this little feather here. This one's a sticker, so I can pull the backing off of it. I actually prefer the images. There we go. All right, hope is the thing with feathers. All right, now I feel like I need a bird here. And I've got that it says that perches in the soul. And I'm going to put it like this, but I have room here for a bird. And I don't, let me see which one I might like. I don't think I need this branch here. Yeah, I think I'll just use his head. Okay. So I'm going to arrange this page. I've got page 1, page 2. Here we are on page 3. Let me put this up because I want to make sure that this is out of the way and up high so that I can get my, that perches really high like that. So I can get my bird in here. Some more glue. And here it is in the soul. And I want this way over to the side as far as I can. There we go. And now I can fit my bird here with plenty of room. And he's got like a little, I'm gonna tear that off so I can see what I'm doing. And I can cut this kind of rough, just so I can fit him in a little better. I'd like him to go like that. All right. So again, brush the back of this with some glue so I get all those nice fine edges and get him in here exactly the way I want him placed. There we go. And before I get my fingers all stuck to it, I'm going to use my roller and push it down so that all those little feathery edges are down solid. And then I'll flip it over and trim the overhang. There we go. All right. So now I could stop at this moment and sort of see my individual pages. Hope is the thing with feathers. I could see one page at a time that perches in the sole. I think I have room up here for this little bright feather. Yep, I think I like that. So a little bit of glue on this feather. Now I have some other interesting objects in here as well. I may probably have way too many things, but I kind of like to have a selection. I just don't know how it's going to go until it kind of evolves out of what I'm doing. So now let's see. I gotta remind myself of where my words go. It says, and sings the tune without the words. Oh, there we go. And never stops at all. Okay, so I've got one page here that is just free for me to do some images. I might take a look at what birds I have here and see if I want to use one of these. Kind of put them in the tree there. Branch, but he doesn't need it. I might put another bird. Actually, I feel like I need one that points that way. I love this red one. I think he might be too big. Oh, I don't know. He looks pretty good. I also have, I have found some other tiny little images like this. And I printed them very small. Oh, this is a lovely bird here too. I'll use him. And this is a cutout. Oh, I might use this one. I printed some really small things. And one of those was this that I really kind of like. I had a tiny little vintage, looks like a greeting card. And then along the outside, I glued it onto a piece of black construction paper, kind of to frame it. And then I had some of these photo corners. And so I really like this, but I'm not sure that I'm gonna be able to use it. It kind of takes a whole page. And it might just be too much. You know, it might have to put that on the back. Yeah, that's probably a better place for it. Okay, so let me find some more of my birds that I have. This one I only have part of. Maybe I can just use, or I might cut him out more. I also like this black and white one, but I really want something facing that way. So let me look at my other birds here. I have more feathers. I also have a bird stamp, which might look kind of cool. Oh, that's really big. So no, I don't think we'll use that. I also have this tiny charm. And one of the things I do like is having kind of some three-dimensional objects in there. And I was gonna put this little bird head, in fact, I'm going to do that. I was gonna put this little bird head on this charm and then attach this charm to the page. And I think that would make a nice little piece here in the middle. So let me put the bird head here, fit him in there, and trim his little cameo here. There we go. So we've got like a little portrait of a bird. I can hang that there. I'm gonna hook that on here with some a needle and thread here. I also used this, I'm gonna show you when I get the pages all done. All right, I want this hanging right here, so. And then I can tie this in a tiny bow and trim the ends. There we go. And to keep it from unraveling, I am going to put a little bit of glue on the on the front here. There we go. And trim these. Go. All right, so we've got that. If I want to keep this from swinging, I could add a little drop of glue there, but I'm gonna see how it goes. I kind of like it how it is. All right, and let me find that big red bird that I had that I like so much. Here he is. I think that feels like it needs to face the other way. So let's put him on the branch right here. And I think I'll add, I don't need his tail on that side. I think I'll add some more feathers. All right, I feel like I'm coming along. 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm halfway done. All right, now I have a few other little kind of things that I might wanna see if I wanna include. I've got this tag. I wonder if this would look nice on here somewhere. It might be too big for this. Here's all my images. I've also got, I love these stars. I might have to put some stars in here. Let me put a silver star. The stars are gonna come along later in the sky in the night, but that little subtle one I think will look good. And in fact, I think I might put another one up here. There we go. So hope is the thing with feathers. It perches in the sole, then we'll break. All right, and then we've got this one. It sings the tune. This is quite a big piece, so I'm gonna have to have less images, although I might be able to put a bird behind this one or a smaller bird in there. More glue here. You know, the other thing I have, which is nice, are these pieces of sheet music, and I can either use the smaller pieces, maybe I could put, because this sings the tune, I could use like a little piece here. Let me see how this would look. Sort of put this there, sings the tune, without the words, and then it's more of this music over here. Let's see, how does that go? It sings the tune without the words, and a bird over here, and then it never stops at all. Okay, I think that will work. So let's do this. I'm gonna put down these music notes here. So when I was thinking of images to gather for this project, I was thinking of specifically of what the words that I'm using from the poem, and use that as kind of a guideline. So again, actually birds are never mentioned in here, but they're implied by the thing with feathers. Nothing else has feathers other than birds. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And sings the tune. Go, and I can add some birds there. So I wanted to use the bird imagery, but I also have this sings the tune, right? So then I have these music notes, and let me put without the words. So that kind of guided me in figuring out what images I wanted to put in here. And to be honest with you, I love birds, and I happen to have this vintage bird book. And so that was sort of like the thing that got me started, to get me going on this whole project to begin with. Like, what am I gonna do? That one gave me like a really good start. So sometimes I'm kind of driven by the images or the things that I have around the house. You know, something that caught my eye earlier, and there's a little bird here in the tree. That might be the thing that kind of inspires me. It might be something, here's another tiny bird. Yeah, I really don't like the white border, so taking the time to cut these out. There we go. This one can actually overlap that a little bit, which looks lovely. And I've got some more feathers. Here's a feather I can use, like this one. But getting those images by what I've got at home already, or some material that may have caught my eye. You never know where something might lead you. So it's kind of good to have all these interesting things. I mean, I have this cool slide. I had the stamp that I'm not going to use. I have some really lovely buttons here. What else? I have a lot of things that I'm not going to use, but sometimes just bringing everything. Here's a really large feather. I might use that. These tags, I mean, I brought them together because I thought that might work. It doesn't. And so it's just better to have too many things laying around and things to use that you can kind of choose from, and have like an abundance of materials so that you don't, I mean, I could make like 2 or 3 books with some of these images. So it's not going to be wasted. It's just that not for this particular thing. I think this needs a star on it. I'm kind of liking the star theme here. Put that one down here. There we go. All right, so I've made some really good progress. I've got all of this, and now I'm here at night. And so my stars and my pieces here are going to kind of take over a little bit. And let me get my stars. I'm going to start with those because those will be somewhat in the background. So let me put more pieces here. Get some of these stars in the sky. And I have this little container of tiny stars. And so I want to add some more size to those. Now the glue will dry. The glue will dry clear, so I can sort of get my stars put down, and not worry too much about the glue, or I can wipe it up a little bit when I'm all done. There we go. Make sure I don't lift my stars off. There we go. All right, let me get the words on, and then I can see what other stars I can put. It never stops. This is next. It never stops. And I think I was going to put at all on this same page. Let me see. Does that fit in well? Yeah, I can put it over the stars. Never stops. I put that tiny star. Well, it's good that I'm gonna stop here and now add more tiny stars. Put a little bit of glue on here and then see if I can just add my little stars. All right, a couple more up here. I'm looking to see if there's like a medium-sized one. I see really small ones, really tiny ones. There are two here. There we go. Okay, so that one is all done. And now let's finish up just by putting Emily Dickinson on the back. All right, Emily here and Dickinson down here. There we go. And now I can add some stars. Actually, I think I need a bird on here. Or I need a feather. Let's see what I've got. Put that way up there on the corner. And let me put this one. What color's that one? Brown. That one there. Do I have a tiny bird I can add? Let's see. Here's a funny little bird. I think he would make a nice little, maybe I should put him here. Nope, I'm gonna put him on the very first, on the very last one. Right here. Cut that extra off. Right, and I think I can put another bird here if I have one. Here's a feather that's too big. Okay, I'm going to cut this here so it stays on that page and cut it off the bottom. All right, and I covered up one more of my stars there. So let me put another one there. I think I could add one over here as well. Kind of transition from one page to the next. So got the big stars, small stars, and then the stars in the sky. All right, so I'm very happy with what I've got here. And I'm gonna let this dry for a minute. While I let this dry, let's move this out of the way. While I let that image dry, I'm going to go back here to my cover. So I was thinking, along with these pages with this little charm that moves, let me let those dry for a moment. And when I put this in here, I also like the idea. I found when I was going through some of my things, I found some feathers, and I thought, well, that would be a nice little bit. And then also I had some feather charms. So what I did here, and I'm going to make one more of these so I can show you how I did that, is I used my embroidery floss. Let me get that. And instead of using a needle, because my beads are so tiny, what I used was a piece of small wire. I had some very thin wire here. And so I'm going to take a piece of this floss and use this wire. So I have a wire, it's very hard to see here, it's very tiny, a teeny tiny piece of wire that's cut in half. And I'm gonna start by grab this little tiny white feather. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to tie this string around my feather. So I'm gonna tie that there, nice and tight. And then I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this floss. I'm going to trim this down short. Put some glue here. And then roll it like this along my fingers to kind of get that glue saturated into the into the string. There we go. And pull it so that it all becomes like one nice piece. There we go. So I've got a little feather at the end of a string. And then I'm going to use some beads. I have some little seed beads here. And the hole on these are so tiny, which is why I wanted to use this wire instead of a needle and thread or a regular needle, because the needle won't go through these. But when I slide this bead down the wire, down the thread, I can go over that glued part and it should stay together fairly well. Make sure I got it on there, rolled tight. And this will sort of seal that on as well. Okay, so the knot is kind of inside here. Now that's gonna really hold that little feather on there. And let me put another bead here. I'll use, I think I'll use this brown one. I'm trying to think of the tones of the colors that I have on this book, greens and browns and blacks, kind of that vintage look. Slide this down. And at this point, it's all kind of locked in, so it doesn't matter if they go over it anymore. And here's a black one. I also had some of these really nice little, oops, there we go. These nice little jasper beads here, these little stone beads, kind of reddish color. So I also used some of these. I used kind of a rectangular one there. I just want to find a small one here. I'll use this one. One of these little brown colored beads right here. And put that through here. There we go. So now what I've got here, I can take this wire off. What I've got here are several little dangles that I'm going to put, they're all with little feathers, because hope is the thing with feathers, right? And I'm going to put these on the back of my book here. I'm going to hang them off the corner. It's okay if they don't all fit within the side, but I want them to kind of fit on here. I have a couple of little interesting items, but if I attach them here, they can kind of hang off on that side of the book. So that looks like a good space for it. So I'm going to trim these here. And then I'm going to lay down some glue. Actually, I can use quite a bit of it. And then I'll glue some paper over this to really hold them in. There we go, I got them glued in there. This won't show on, this is going to be kind of tucked in the inside of the book, so it's kind of hidden away. But to make sure that they really stay in there well, I'm going to take a little bit of paper, and I think I'll use some of this paper here, this music paper, to kind of cover that. And I'm going to cover this. Here we go. And I can tear that off here, so that if you do see and kind of peek in there on these books, you will be able to see a little bit down in there. So that way it's got something kind of consistent with my whole aesthetic and imagery here. All right, so there's the book. Now, let me move all this over because I'm ready to put my pages in. My little feather. There's the book. Here are the pages. They're nice and dry. Now this book is going to want to pop open because I've added all these layers to my accordion. Plus I have some elements in here that are three-dimensional. So it's a little fatter. So I'm going to put it and glue it in here, but it's going to want to kind of spring out like this. All right. So knowing that, after I complete this book, I'm going to wrap it with a rubber band or something to kind of keep the book shut. And that'll help keep the pieces there. So let me spread glue on this first page. I like to use a brush to make it nice and neat. So I'm putting glue all to the edges of this very first page. And this one is going to go on the front here. So it goes right there. And I've got those little brads kind of sticking up, so I got to make sure that I get this on here and really adhere it down before the glue dries. I might have to put more glue on it. It looks like it's, oh, there we go, it's sticking. But I've added that a little bit of dimension there, and so it's wanting to kind of raise up. All right, that one looks like it's on there now. And let me fold my accordion, and I'll do the same on the back. Put some glue here. And spread that right to the edges so I don't have anything that'll get lifted. And that is going to go on the back cover. And again, this is going to kind of pop up when I let go of it because it's been worked, and it needs to kind of get into it'll relax into that space later. But what I want right now is to make sure that my book is, or that my pages are really attached in here. I'm going to use that. Fold them back in. Let's take a look here. Is that one in? See, I think this one's going to need to be bound in a little tighter. Make sure it's in there. And I'll have to wrap this up to hold the book shut for an overnight. We'll usually do it. It'll kind of relax into shape. But this is it. This is my tiny book. So what I've got here is my cover with this kind of wide-eyed owl on it, the little dangles that hang off the side, and my first page, Hope, is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. I can see his little beak is lifted up, so let me stop here and make sure his little beak gets attached, and he also has a piece hanging off here. So this is good for me to check on those last minutes here. I want this to be trimmed right to there. I can get his beak on there, okay? And then there's just a little picture page. Sings the tune. This one's lifting up too. So I gotta go here and make sure everything fits inside the pages. And sings the tune without the words. And never stops at all. And then Emily Dickinson. All right, I feel like, let me make sure that's in there before I close it. I don't want it to lift off. There we go. My Hope page is still lifting here, so I'm gonna put a little bit of glue, a little additional glue right up here inside. This is where those brads were, and so it doesn't want to lay flat. But I can do that by pushing down on it and holding it for a moment with a little bit of pressure till the glue really kind of tacks on. I can't really roll that one because of the dimensionality of the brads there, but it's sticking. It's just taking a moment. All right, there we go. My book is done. If you're interested in more tutorials like this or work along with me type things, I would be happy to make some more tiny books. I make tiny books all the time. Here's one I had made prior to this with another poem inside. I also have one I want to make with my cats, cats inside because I'm a big cat fan. So I have other ideas that I would like to pursue, but also if you're interested in using the exact images that I'm using, I would be happy to create like a digital download where you might be able to download all the images for a price, just a few dollars. And then you could create the exact one. I could give you the music paper, the poem, all of the individual images. I would be happy to do that if there's interest in that. So thanks for being here. Check out some of my other tutorials. I do have some other bookbinding tutorials. I do have some other interesting projects that you might like, and I plan on doing more. And I look forward to seeing what comes up next week. Thanks.